versus the world on 106.7 The Fan. I'm joined by the hosts of Dual Threat, Matt Cahill and Robert Bode. Bass Billfish with you.
Are you going to throw it to Tom?
No. College football radio show is on. I need it on my sheet. When is your guys' show on?
7 to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
You'll be doing it live?
Live, yes.
Unfortunately, he'll be live. I'm trying to get Bodie to do a pre-record, but
That's probably tilting to you.
it's a little bit tilting, Chad.
Well, I have you boys in here. First, let's talk about what's the oldest. Bodie and I talked about this, Drabby, but before the show. We love Jason McIntyre, who's supposed to come on the show today, by the way. I booked him, and then
What time?
yeah, I don't know. I think maybe 3:30.
Oh, that's open, actually.
Have to double check. Very professional organization. Jason McIntyre from the Big Lead was pitching an S-fit about the Notre Dame call against Florida State last week. Bode Mode and I both actually watched it and said, well, that looks like pass interference because the wide receiver is trucking the DB into the end zone. Did you guys both agree on that was PI?
I think we're going back and forth with it. It could be called either way, and I know McIntyre, for whatever reason, is a big Notre Dame fan. But look, Ramsey, the cornerback from Florida State, he does go up and grab the Notre Dame receiver right at the line of scrimmage. But Notre Dame guy, he doesn't try to break out of it. He doesn't try to run a route at all. He puts his head down and just tries to run through him. Unfortunately, I'm a big Notre Dame fan as well.
Roll Irish.
You got to make that call, I think. But the sad part is that Florida State was beating that coverage, and Notre Dame had him beat. He just had to run the route, and the game was over, and they couldn't finish it.
Well, remember, we talked to Santana about it. Tuesday, Velocity 5, Santana's always out there with Chad.
Moss.
And 4:30 to 4:15, I guess, to 5:15. And either way, we asked him about it, and he said if he had sold it better, they wouldn't have called it.
Yeah.
But he didn't sell it very well. He got his hands up, almost looking like he was blocking on a screen pass right from the jump, and that's why it didn't work. And you know, Chad, I'm with you. I thought it wasn't this big cover-up conspiracy that everyone made it out to be.
Right.
But I tell you what, I think Notre Dame's in big trouble. I've heard people all week long say, doesn't matter. Notre Dame runs the table after this. They're going to get into the college football playoff. Because people just assume that Notre Dame, if they win the rest of their games, everybody wants to see them in the playoff. But the problem is that Notre Dame hasn't beat anybody. They beat North Carolina the week before, who's one of the worst teams on the East Coast right now. They beat them by 7 points. They give up 43 points at home. They have 0 good wins. The only team that they've beaten is Stanford, who's 4-3 at this point. Now they can get it back later, a little bit later in the season when they play Arizona State and USC. But at this point, they have no good wins.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to take to get into the college football playoff, because all they care about in the committee at this point is strength of schedule.
Jimbo Fisher had his little hissy fit after that whole thing, and he's clearly is tired of talking about Jameis Winston. Why do people hate Florida State so much this year? Is it Jameis? Is it like what is it about that team that's been pissing people off?
Well, this is a great question because now this North Carolina thing, a lot of writers are talking about how North Carolina, if you haven't heard, they basically for 20 years now have been giving classes to half their student body that was in these classes were athletes, and they basically just gave them A's and B's. It's the biggest fraudulent, schooling, class scandal that we've ever seen. Dennis Dodd on CBS.com today, CBSSports.com today said they need the death penalty. Yet no one's talking about it.
No, that's true.
And Florida State, because they covered it up with the crab legs, they handled that poorly, and the all the stories about how they covered up the rape investigation, and Jameis getting suspended for screaming out the obscenities on the campus, and then coming out dressed in his uniform, and then at the end of the game...
Well, he's an idiot. We discussed that last week.
He's a big dummy, but Jimbo keeps defending him and keeps bringing him up, and after they beat Notre Dame, he talked about the resiliency from his quarterback and how, these things outside the program he can, shake off, and that's why he's such a great player. And then people ask him about Jameis Winston, and he says, I don't want to talk about that. You guys know you weren't supposed to ask about him today. And he just storms off. And it's just a double standard. And Florida State right now is just with Jameis and the way they've protected him, and the fact that Jimbo Fisher just seems like he's so smug, and it just feels dirty watching this team.
Be honest, I don't understand the hate for Florida State at all. People always say Free Shoes University. How long ago was that? 20 years ago at this point, seems like.
People have forgiven Penn State at this point.
Right. Florida State's only had 3 major infractions in the history of their football program. Bobby Bowden led a great program while he was there. Now, I understand that people don't like Jameis because he is kind of aloof and he seems dumb and acts like he's better than everybody else, better than the system.
He doesn't learn from his mistakes.
When did Notre Dame become the beloved team in this country? Everybody hates Notre Dame, but just because they're playing Florida State all of a sudden, they're everyone's angel. What happened? What's going on here?
Yeah. But I think the big thing, though, was, Jameis just doesn't get it. He had all these interviews before the season after he made the mistake with the crab legs and said, I've got to hold myself to a higher standard. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to learn from my mistakes. And then he keeps making them. And Florida State just continues to not suspend him, not do anything about it. I mean, we had the player at Florida get suspended for a game when the girl that charged him with sexual assault basically was mad that he was cheating on her and nothing happened. They dropped the case, yet he got suspended for a game. Jameis hasn't missed but one game, and that's for screaming obscenities. Nothing with the crab legs, nothing with this, cover up for the rape thing, none of it.
Okay, but here we are in week 9 of the college football season. Can we give Florida State some respect at this point? All anyone's wanted all season long is for them to lose and say they're not worthy of being the number 1 team. Well, they haven't lost since 2012, and they beat a very good Notre Dame team, at least we think so. And they're still undefeated, and they're in a great position to go back to the playoff because they're not going to play anybody else the rest of the season. I think Florida State has proven that they are the number 1 team, and until Mississippi State beats a better opponent, yeah, I know they beat 3 top 10 teams in a row, but 2 of those teams were LSU and Texas A&M, who are terrible.
Well, they're going to get a chance. They're going to play Alabama.
They'll get a chance here.
Miss.
Yeah,
they beat
we'll find
Auburn,
out.
which is better than any team that Florida State will play all season.
I agree, but Florida State has not shown me anything that they are not the number 1 team in the country, or at least don't deserve to be coming in as the preseason number 1.
You guys both told me that Georgia was going to lose to Arkansas.
Yeah, a slight slip up. Hey, it happens. But hey, I picked.
You're my college football experts.
I picked Kansas State to beat.
Huh?
I picked Kansas
I heard
State
what
to win.
your fatty was last
Bodie
week,
picked
this morning
West
on the
Virginia to
Junkies
beat
jerk
Baylor.
face. I heard the
All
beating
right,
you took.
We slip up every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
Speaking of slipping up, the Hokies get drubbed by Miami. They're 4-4 now. Who we have on from the pre and post game show? I forget what his name is.
Kevin Bailey.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He was really good, but I asked him. Is Beamer? Beamer's one of these lifetime guys. You assume he's going to go out on his own terms, but we've seen Bobby Bowden. We've seen them with other things. Joe Paterno. It's not always the case. Should Virginia Tech maybe be considering bringing in a breath of fresh air? I mean, Beamer's been there for forever and a day. Is that something that you think is being considered?
I think they should. I don't think they will. I think he's done too much for that program, that university. I mean, he really is the face of Virginia Tech football. They wouldn't be a team that people continually put at the top of the ACC just on their track record. But I do think that they could use a infusion of energy and something a little bit different. They've got that energy with Bud Foster, but maybe it's really going out and spending a lot of money on an offensive coordinator. Maybe you don't have to get rid of Frank Beamer, but they got to do something to change it up because this offense has been boring since Michael Vick left.
Everybody says, let's just make Bud Foster the defensive coordinator head coach. Well, you see how good Virginia Tech's defense was last night? Miami's running back ran for 250 yards. I think it's time to completely clean house there before you end up, no offense, Bodie, like a program like Florida or Tennessee or once great program. Florida's in the same position.
Yeah.
If they don't turn things around, they're going to fall into that category where you're USC or Tennessee or one of these once great programs that nobody wants to go to anymore.
You mentioned Muschamp. They're going to fire him. Who's going to be the next coach of Florida?
I have no idea. This is the problem. Athlon Sports wrote a great article that Drab completely disagrees with, but they basically said we've had so much turnover in the coaching profession recently in college football, and the assistant coaches, the coordinators, are making so much money that a lot of these top assistants, Kirby Smart at Alabama, Chad Morris at Clemson, the offensive coordinator there, they don't want to leave. They're making so much money where they are that a lot of them feel comfortable there, and they don't have to jump at the first head coaching gig that comes open. Also,
yeah, but it's not Tulane. You know what I mean?
No,
Florida should have enough.
You're right, and that's
panache.
And they have more money than anybody. What's
Yes.
better than a lot of money is more money than that.
But a lot of the top coordinators that are coming up, a lot of the top coordinators that are coming up though are way too young, and I don't think they're ready for the Florida gig because the Florida gig is different. It's on a different level. Your SEC, you won 2 national titles within the last 10 years. You have a lot to live up to, and this is the frustrating part because Florida fans are annoying. You've got to score points and win. You can't just win. You have to score points and win.
Yeah, it's got to be sexy. Bodie wants Dan Mullen, who's the head coach of Mississippi State, of course, ranked number 1 in the country right now. I don't see that happening because it's so rare from a coach to go to another team in the same conference. I told Bodie the other day they should go after Spurrier again. He does, and granted, he's at South Carolina, same conference as well, but he has that history with them, and Bode's laughing at it. I think it's a real possibility. He's about 4 years from retiring. Bode doesn't think it's going to happen because of that whole resume, look in the trophy case.
I love that story, by the way. It's my favorite story in all of sports.
It would be so perfect. It's like Phil Jackson coming back to the Lakers.
You know what's a better story than that Steve Spurrier story?
What?
When Najee Davenport took the dump in the laundry hamper in that chick's closet and then dove out the window. That is look that story up. We need to find that story. It's my favorite. Boys, it's a bit of a lean week in college football. What are we watching this weekend? What's on the 3 big TVs?
You have Ole Miss and LSU on Saturday night, but I think, and I'm a Pac-12 guy.
Are you? You just said you're a huge Notre Dame fan.
Well, I'm all over the place, but the Pac-12 South is the second best division in football. They have 4 teams that have 5 wins already on the season, and 2 of those teams play on Saturday, Utah and USC. Utah is 5-1 on the season. They're not getting any respect, and they will beat the Trojans on Saturday night to go 6-1 and be a real player here, perhaps, in the Pac-12.
I really want to see the Arizona State game. I think that's a huge game, but I think the biggest game of the weekend, and it's not just because it's locally, I want to see if Maryland can really get it done against Wisconsin. They're both 5-2. They could win their side of their division if they keep the thing rolling. I also kind of want to see if Michigan State can absolutely embarrass Michigan, because that could be the end for Brady Hoke, the head coach there. Michigan State hosts Michigan. They could wipe the absolute floor with them, win by 40. Brady Hoke is fired. Isn't
that just like a festering gangrenous arm that's just like rotting away? Like, why hasn't that been lopped off yet?
It's a great question.
Boys, the Twitter, how can people listen? Where can they listen? Tell everybody where your show is.
Saturday mornings here, right here on 106.7 The Fan from 7 to 8 o'clock. But please follow us on Twitter. That's at Dual Threat CFB.
You can find us on iTunes as well.
Yeah, if you're a big college football fan, give them a follow. Good job, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you, Chet.
Appreciate it. Sean Salisbury joins me in 90 seconds. 3:26, we'll have Caps and Red Wings tickets on the line at Chet Dukes versus the World.
This is your